This video shows how to add fractions with mixed numerals. The drawing across the top is a pretty simple way to look at the directions. Basically, when you have a problem like this that has two mixed numerals, I know they're kind of small to see there, it says first add together the whole numbers. So you have a 1 and a 2, and you show those by shading. There's the 1 and there's the 2. The second step is to fill in the fraction amounts. In this case, it was 3/5 and 4/5. And so what we did in class is the first fraction, which was a 3 there, we counted out 1, 2, 3, and we used a dot. And the second one, the 4, we did 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. And then that was the next step. The next step then is to when all the pieces are filled up here, it says, you can see that you have 1, 2, 3, this is a fourth full, and 2/5, and there's your answer, 4 and 2/5. The first thing that might happen when you check out this document then is that there's no number right here in this first place. And that was really actually an interesting and valuable discussion in class. I intentionally took all of those out so that it would generate discussion about what we could use and should use. So for example, on this first one here, it says your first step is to make sure they have common denominators. You'll see that in a little bit, but these do. These are both 10 for a denominator. Then you add your whole numbers by shading. So we have a 3 and a 1. So we just quickly shade 3 and 1 more. And then we have 9/10, so we use dots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The students would choose whatever number they wanted to go there. When we began using numbers, of course, that are less than 10, we wanted to use all kind of proper mixed numerals. So say you put 5 in here, and then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You would see that you have now 5 and 4/10. And we label that at the end of the line. Students on this are expected to reduce, so they would know that that is, when they're even numbers, for example, you always cut them in half. So 5 and 2/5 would be the reduced answer right there. And of course, this all depends on what number is chosen. So in class, we just went down through these and we just chose numbers, and chose numbers. And then eventually something interesting happened. Some students said, well, can we choose a number that's larger than 5? And everybody kind of paused. And the great thing about that discussion was for this learning and for understanding how this works, it's kind of cool to sometimes change a number right there that's larger than 5. So I'll give an example and I'll tell why that would be effective. So again, your first step is to see, are they even numbers? Or excuse me, are they common denominators, excuse me. And they are common denominators, of course they are. They're all shown there. We have a 2 and a 2, so we shade 2 of them and 2 more of them. The first one says 4/5, so 1, 2, 3, 4/5. And then this was kind of what happened a lot in class. Many students said, well, how many extra fifths would you need to fill this one and gain one? For whatever reason, that came up a lot in class. So rather than put 1/5 merely and fill this space, somebody said, well, why don't we use 6/5 like this? And that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then they had an even 6 holes like this. And then that kind of caught on as a pattern. Sometimes students would say even more, like they'd add the next one. So for example, on this, that would have been 11/5, and then they would have went like this and tried to fill up another. And again, it was just an interesting discussion. I said that you don't really ever use an improper mixed numeral. That is where the numerator is bigger than the denominator inside of a mixed numeral. But for the purpose of learning how this worked, it wasn't a bad idea to do that sort of thing. So the other side of this page that we used in class looks like this, and the whole point of it was, if you've done it with visuals, you should now be able to remember the same steps without visuals and solve it. And that's going to be in the second little video following this one.